Hi, everyone. Sorry for taking so long. We've had some unexpected technical issues that were a little bit harder than we expected to resolve. So welcome, everyone, to our first webinar as an SV and as a Scori IT. We hope that it will be very helpful to you guys. We're missing one blondie from our team, Peter, who unfortunately is still facing technical issues. So we'll just get over with the introduction and hopefully he will be able to join us as we go on. So I'm Basma. I'm from IFA Morocco and I'm a member of the Scori Supervising Board. Next is Shia, if you can introduce yourself.
Hi guys, my name is Shia. I'm from IFMSC Quebec and I'm also one of your members for the Supervising Board.
We have also Chris. We cannot hear you, Chris. I think there is an issue with your microphone. Can you turn on? Yeah, now good.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Perfect. I'm Chris from VVMD Germany. I'm not a big fan of Hangout, so please excuse me if it's not working properly, but I hope you will learn a lot, guys.
And finally, from beautiful India, we have Bharat.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bharat. I'm one of the awesome SP members that we were trying to deliver the webinar. So, yeah,
okay.
Hope you enjoyed.
Thank you. So I'll be sharing with you guys my screen as we go over a little presentation that we got ready for you. Hopefully, Peter will be able to join us midway through it, but until then, you'll have to do with me and with our lovely 3 other members. So give us a second and present. Okay, so these are our names again, if you lost some of them. I'll be starting first by introducing what a project form is. So a project form is basically the only official form that can be sent to the supervising board via email for a project to be reviewed and accepted, hopefully, or refused. It's the only way we have of managing our project in Scori and the only way we have of making sure that everything is done well in our exchanges. It's also the only source of information about projects for students, loris, and noris, and it's the only way you can explain clearly what your project is about to anybody who might be interested in it. So what is the structure of a project form? It can start with just basic general information, and it's what it has. We're going to go over the details of every part. Then it goes on to the description of the actual project, the students' involvement in the project, requirements from students interested in this project, schedule, as well as special remarks or any additional things that you would like to add. And finally, the project status, which is a part that will be filled in by the supervising board. So this is something we would like to introduce you to, which is the new and improved project form we have for you this term. It's pretty much the same information as the old one that you're more used to using, but it's a bit clearer and funner to use, more fun. So for general information, the first part is the name of the research project you have. So it should be highly specific and match the aim of the project. That means that it should not be something very not unclear. So for example, newborns in Morocco is not a project. It should state what the student will be doing in that project. It should also have the full name and address of the department. So any documents that can be sent from or to the establishment can be done very easily. It should have the name and of the head of the department, to the tutor, the email, as well as a phone number that you need to make sure to add your country's code to. After that, we go on to the part that most of the NMOs have some issues with, which is the description of the actual project. We have some general information here, but I'll go a little bit into details in the next slides. So we have two parts that are very crucial to the description of the project and that you should be very specific in. The first one is the background of the project, and the first one is the background of the project, and the second one is the aim of the project. So in the first part, you're supposed to give us information about the project, why it was started, when it was started, by whom, and in the aim, you're saying what will be the purpose of this whole research project and why the student should be interested in it. So for your background, our tips for it, so it can be accepted, is first of all to respect our minimum and maximum number of lines for that part. So minimum 10 lines and maximum 20 lines. It must be very clear and complete. It should not be ambiguous, and it should provide a very clear idea on the project for the student. For the aim, it should be also very specific. So why does this project exist? What is its purpose? And what kind of result that the study hope to obtain? So basically, if you think that the description you have does not answer these three questions, then it should not be the aim you're sending us, because we have no other involvement in the project. So if you're not very clear with us on what it does and what we should expect from it, we have no clear idea on it, and it's going to be a project we would either refuse or send back to you for revision. So when we say that it should be specific, we mean, for example, that when you write the student will learn laboratory techniques, that is not specific enough. What kind of laboratory techniques, how will he be learning them, etc. Is the project description actually related to the aim of the project? That means that it's not like, oh, this laboratory has been working on various projects that are similar to this one, and it's a great laboratory, blah, blah, blah. Or it's like a general description of the topic of the research, like colon cancer is a high risk, blah, 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 but it doesn't tell us what the actual research is. It's not going to be accepted. It's going to be either refused or we will send it back for revision. And the aim should be very clear. So it's an objective. You don't need to get into like philosophical thesis on it. It should be just like, we are going to do this and this and this in order to get this and this and this. So the next part we would like to ask you to kind of try to avoid. It's an issue that we face a lot while reviewing projects, which is abbreviations. We get a lot of abbreviations. We understand that some of them can appear very easy to understand for most people. It does not mean that we should be using them in that part. So for example, even if it's something as easy as PCR or ELISA or something, you should write specifically what it is, like in full words, at least once in the text. So even students who might not have studied them or might have another nomination for them still understand what you're saying. So that's gonna be it for me. I'm gonna leave the next part for Shia. If you can please take over.
Yeah, sure, of course. Yeah, sure. The next part is about the techniques and the methods, and to mention some stages of this project. So what we're really looking for in this section is to have the general idea of what the project involves in terms of techniques and methods, and hopefully also get an overview of what the whole project is like. So we're not asking you to go into a lot of details as to what exactly it will be, but we hope that by reading this description, the student can have a good idea of the big picture of this project. So we want something that's clear and concise, and once again, please avoid abbreviations that could be confusing to some students. Just write them out in full first. When did the department start working on this project? So here we want to know what year. So for instance, was it 2005 or 2016? So that could kind of give the student an idea of how long this project has been going on. If this is a project that will start soon or in the future, that's also something that you could indicate, but please just be aware that, you know, from the time you post it and when the students are applied, that time-wise it makes sense. And then the type of project. So please just check one option, either basic sciences. So usually when you think basic sciences, you think laboratory work, people who are generally working with chemicals or molecules, really. Or it can be clinical research without lab work. So this, we think a lot about the clinical research that involve patients, involve a lot of data, but never really working in a classical lab setting that most people have the idea of. And third, clinical research with lab work. So it's a bit of a combination of the previous two. A good way to know whether a project is clinical or not is to think, does this project involve some sort of human data or human tissue or something? If it does, chances are it is a clinical research project. So for the next slide. So now we're at the student involvement. So it's actually a really important section for the student, because that's what they're going to be doing during the project. So here, there's 5 things mainly that you guys have to check, either yes or no, or sometimes not applicable. If, for instance, for question 3, 4, and 5, the project you've described is not a clinical project or a lab work project. So there is possibility of checking more than one, but please make sure that whatever you're checking, it makes sense. For instance, please don't fill out the clinical part if there is no clinical thing involved. And please also make sure that whatever you check here makes sense with the description afterwards, when you're gonna write out in words what the student will do. So for next one, here, that's exactly what I was talking about. What are the tasks expected of the student? So if before you said the student will only observe, please make sure that it makes sense in this area as well, so as to reduce the confusion. Minimum 10 lines, that's where we really want you to go more in detail into what the student will do exactly. So, yes?
Sorry, no, can you give me a second? They're telling me the slides do not show. So can you give me a
okay. Yeah, sure, no problem.
Okay. Wait. Peter, who's helping us from, can you tell us if now they are seen? Can you give me sorry guys, can you give us a second? Okay. We're not sure what the issue totally is. Okay. So I think, Shia, if you can maybe do the slides from your computer, because when you talk, it switches to your profile, so it doesn't show it.
Okay, so I need to screen share, right?
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Good?
Almost. We're getting there. Okay, so you should be able to see what I'm seeing.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, so I'm guessing you you weren't seeing the screen for like the past few slides, so let's go back a bit. So that's where we were. Is this where we were? Sorry, 2 seconds. Okay, so oh dear, you see, I'm really bad at this. Okay, so this was the first screen. Well, the first slide that I showed. So that's when we were talking about the techniques and methods, the year of the department, the type of project. So that's for the student involvement. This should be relatively simple. It's just a matter of checking. And so, yeah, we were here. I was saying that for when you write out the task expected to be accomplished by the students, please give more explanation, be specific, like Basma mentioned a bit earlier, and do respect the number of lines, because that's a very common reason why a project form does not pass. The task of the student will be performed on her own. Okay, so that's check yes or no, and task will be done under supervision. So once again, it's just a matter of checking. Will there be any theoretical teaching provided for the students, preliminary readings, lectures, courses, seminars? So, oops, sorry. So ideally, yes, but this is very tutor dependent. So depending on what the tutor wants, just please give as much information as you can so the student can have a good idea of what to expect. Another meme by Basma. So I think it goes back to the idea that you do have to, be clear as possible in your description so we can understand, and thus the student can understand what the project form is saying. So for the next part, shall we switch to someone else?
I think we were waiting to switch for Chris, but his computer is not working, so I can take it over.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Bharat also, if his, I don't know if he can screen share. Okay, I'll just do it. So, can you see the slides? I'll go over. So the next part of the is Shia. Can you see everything? Because I'm not sure. Okay, so what is the next part is what is expected from a student at the end of the exchange, or what will be his outcome from the actual project. So you again just need to check the parts that you think apply to the project that you're sending us. So the student will be expected to prepare a poster or presentation or a scientific report or an abstract, if the student's name will be mentioned in a future publication or not, or if the student will be able to present together with the supervisor in a conference or something similar, or if, again, there is no specific outcome. You just need to check those who apply, and it should be logical, and you should not be telling us stuff that don't really apply. We'll be moving to the next part, which is the requirements of the students. So first of all, what skills are required of the student? So if you think there are any skills that you think are mandatory to have in order to be able to effectively participate in the project, may it be skills in something to do with the lab, or certain subjects, or in certain areas of work, that is something that you should be mentioning very clearly here in specific words. So for example, what's not very specific can be student must pass medical exam. What is a medical exam? Like, it's a very broad term that can be misinterpreted according to the country of origin of the student. The part after that is there any special knowledge or certain level of studies needed? So for example, if you think certain subjects should be passed before applying for the project, you can mention them here. If you think the student should have previous experience, may it be in a lab or in other projects or something similar, it can be done there. And if he needs a certificate of language or of a certain skill, again, you should also specify if there are any legal limitation of the student's involvement. If he should not be doing something or sharing something or getting involved in something, it should be written here very, very clearly, because if something happens and it was not mentioned in the project or the student beforehand, then it's not fully the student's responsibility, since he or she didn't know. The scientific report, is there a scientific report demanded after the exchange? Again, it's up to you and your tutor to see if you require one afterwards or not. And again, the languages, and this is something very important. In required languages, English should always be mentioned. It's the language of all projects in our Scori exchanges. So it's something that if it's not mentioned, automatically the project is going to be sent back. And then if you have other languages that might give the student the chance to participate in more activity, then it's going to be mentioned in accepted languages. Sorry guys, I think there is something wrong with the presentation for people. Okay, it's okay. So it's working now. So to go back to the point I was making, languages required always English, and then if there is another language that can be accepted by your tutor or the hospital, it can be added there. So for example, Morocco, we speak French and Arabic in addition to English. So a required language would be English, and then accepted can be French or Arabic, because it will give, for example, in clinical or projects with clinical and lab, it will give access. It will give students access to other parts of the project that maybe only English-speaking students cannot access. And then here is another part, which is which kind of students can you actually accept? And at least one should be ticked off. The first one is obviously medical students, and then do you accept graduate students, pre-medical students, students in biomedical fields, and dental medicine students? So again, at least one should be ticked off. You can add more, but we need one, or you're not saying that you can accept anybody, which is not very smart. And then the last part is for the use of the students. Is there any articles that they can find further information in? And this is also very important, because articles are one of the reasons we can refuse a project again. If a project is sent in with, for example, a link to like a post in a website, or if it's a page in a book or something similar, then it's not an article, and we will not be accepting it as an SB. So you should make sure that you have viable articles for us to check out, and for the students to read a little bit more about the project. So that's going to be it for me. I will hand over to Shia. And Chris, can you share the screen with us?
I think Bharat can, if he wants to go.
Okay, so maybe Bharat can go and then Chris afterwards, if it's okay with Chris. I know he worked a lot on these slides and I feel bad that he cannot.
Okay, I will be continuing with the schedule. Okay, it's very important because you have to mention the timeline when the project would be open, when we'll be there, how many hours the student will be working, how many weeks the students would be there. So first is the duration of the project, which could be either 4 weeks or 8 weeks. The next section is the hours that the student has to devote per day for the research or the work that he's assigned. So it should be minimum 6 hours. And most of the people always do, the local office or the people feel wrong over here, and we need to send it, or we have to reject the project for that purpose. Next is availability of the months. So you have to make sure that these are filled, okay, whether it's a single month available project or whether it's for annually. How many students can you accept at the same time per project? So you have to mention how many students at the same time during the same month the student can work on the same project. So it can be either 1, 2, or 3, whichever is suitable for your tutor to take at that period. As I said, okay, they said the student has each day 6 hours of work. So you have to have 6 hours of work in the research laboratory. I think, okay. So next is the requirement. As Basman already said, that English is a compulsory language and other languages are acceptable. As she mentioned, it's Arabic and French in Morocco. Similarly, in India, we do have Hindi and many other more languages, but English is a must. Second is you have to mention research article, specific article to the project, because it can give more clear idea on what students about the project, so they can go and search on the research sites like PubMed and places where it's published, so they can get what the topic is about. They can get an in-depth perspective of the project while selecting it, so they get a choice in selecting the project. Next, working hour, it should be at least 6 hours, because if the academic quality is it's not met, we can't accept the project. Special remark is the section where if you have to mention anything, like supposedly if a tutor wants to have a Skype call with the student before coming, so you have to mention it in the special remark, or any other thing that has been required by the tutor or by the in regards with the project, it has to be mentioned in the special remark. So while the students going through the project form, he could see and make sure that he can able to fulfill it. Project status, it's not for you guys, it's for us. We will be taking one of the 3 options given over there. Accepted, good for you. Revised, you have to work on it. And rejected, sorry guys, you have to send a good project. I think Basma would be taking from other common mistake while filling the project form.
So Chris has offered to take over since his computer is finally working. So I will leave him with that.
I hope it's working. Please tell me it's working.
Yeah, it's working. Yoo-hoo!
Oh no, now it's crashed again. But I can start anyway. So for the no. I think now it's crashed. I'm sorry guys. Maybe someone else should take no. Yeah, for the most common mistakes while filling the project form, we really faced a lot of problems that people sending the wrong project form or an old one, and they just switching the year. So they just used the one from 2015 and then switched it to 2017. Right now, the one we're using is the one from 2016. We just explained to you the new form. This is going to be used after the project update. So please make sure to use the right form. You can always find the most current one in the Nori folder. And it's important that it's a Word document, because otherwise we can't edit our comments, we can't write anything in it. So please make sure that you use a Word document. It's important that you answer all questions, because if you don't answer them, we have to send it back to you to ask to revise it and answer the questions properly. And Basma already mentioned that it's really important to have a specific title. because otherwise we can't edit in the database. So to wrap it up, please always remember that the tutor has to write a good description of the background, the methods, and the role of the student. In these sections, we're asking you to put a minimum of 10 lines or up to 20 lines in the new format. So please make sure you write at least 10 lines, because otherwise we will send it back for revision, and no less than 6 hours a day of work. We usually face problems because they're writing 5 hours and then they're just changing it to 6 hours, but make sure that the academic quality is met in this section. Yeah, you can find more information on how to fill the project form properly in the SCORI Resource Center. With this link, you can find a presentation for NORIs. We also have a presentation for LORIs on how to fill the project form. If you're not sure, use it, and then you are sure that everything is filled quite good. You can always have a look at the guidelines as well and ask us. Just approach us on the SB account, write an email if you're not sure, and we can help you. So for the next part, I think Basma is going to share the screen.
Yep. Okay. I'll slide it over again to you at the flowchart so you can present your work. But for now, we'll go over the communication guidelines. Okay. Okay, so I would like you all to meet Tom. Tom is a very nice guy. He has been elected a NORI, or she. His like gender is not specified. He or she reads the project guidelines. He or she respects the project guidelines. So when they send the project guideline, it gets accepted. So please be like Tom. If you are not sure of what project guideline is, first of all, bad NORI. Second of all, it's a document that covers all aspects related to projects in SCORI. Whenever we send you back a project, or whenever we think there is an issue with your project, we make sure to link you to the project's guidelines. It's a document that you can find on the NORI folder. And I encourage all of you to go through it. It's a bit too long for us to go over like part by part in this webinar, but I will explain very fast what the main things or main subjects are. Okay, so the first part explains to you very clearly and simply how to find a tutor, what kind of tutor to approach, what arguments to use, and how and when to approach him or her. The second part explains how to fill properly a SCORI project form. So basically, it's everything we just explained to you step by step in this video, but in words, in written words, and it explains, like, it gives example on bad ways to fill in the project form. It gives examples on common mistakes that most NORIs and LORIs make and how to get them corrected by the tutor. The third part explains again why the project format should be in Word. We will not accept any other format or any old version of the project form, because the changes were made in order to make it more efficient and for us to give maximum information to the students attending the project. So we expect you to use the correct project form. It's also how the database is adapted to each project form. So if you fill in the wrong one, you might not be able to correctly fill in the project in the database. So remember, project form should be filled in correctly according to the project guidelines. That's one. The second thing, it should be the right version of the project form that you can find in the NORI folder, and it should be in a doc format. When we answer you with the revisions, usually we send the document like in a Word format as well as a PDF. And the last part explains updating the projects, when it happens, and how you should be updating the projects. We are gonna update the project form, the project guidelines that we have right now, because it doesn't fit 100% everything that we are doing currently, but you can still use it until we have the new version, in addition to the emails that Kate sends over the server whenever there is a new change that you should be aware of. So I will leave to the next person to present the flowchart. Chris?
Yes, I hope it
Okay,
works.
go.
I just need some time because my computer is super slow. So, the next part is the revision flow chart, because we're always asked, how do you guys work? How is it working, the revision process? Like, why does it take so much time for us to get some answers? So we want to give you a general overview. How are the different steps while we revise a project? So the first step actually begins with you, the lorries and the nories. You receive the project form from a tutor, or the lorry gives it to the nori. Please make sure that it's filled properly with all the tips we just gave you. So it's important that the nori revises the project form so we can actually accept it in the first step already. After the nori revises it, he sends it to the SB, and within 3 days, we assign it to one of the SB members. We have a system that on Thursdays and on Sundays, we assign the projects to each SB member. So it might take some time till you get an answer, but within 3 days, someone is responsible for your project. And he should revise your project within 15 days. From there on, from here, there are 3 different ways. It can either get rejected. It actually not happens a lot, because last year people were telling us, yeah, you're so mean, you're sending so many revisions, what are we doing wrong? But actual rejections we do not send quite often. It's only if it doesn't fulfill the SCORY requirements, for example, if it's a Scopy project, or if almost none of the things are filled or filled in a different language than English, so it's not possible for us to revise it. So as for the one of the most common ways is the revision. If we have some small things to revise, we will send back the project with our comments and with the project guidelines, so you can have a short look, like what should I do better, where can I improve, and then the Nori sends the project back for revision. So it starts again for us to revise the project. Usually this takes only a small time, like a couple of days, because we already know the project, we know what should have been revised, and then we can accept it. That also takes like a couple of days again, and we add a spot in the database and write you an email that the project is accepted and ask you to add it in the database, and you should send us the link within 15 days so we can have a look at it. Yes. So this was the first part on how to fill in the project form. And the second part is on how to approach tutors, because it's important to know who you would like to approach and how you approach them. If you don't do it properly, you won't get any new projects to fill the project form anyway. So this part is important, people. So Shia is going to take over and explain you a little bit on what are the most common problems and struggles while approaching a tutor.
Okay, so let's do that. Okay. So, all right, we'll get there. Okay. So most common problems and struggles when when approaching a tutor. So it really depends on if it's a tutor who knows IFMSA or a new tutor that you guys want to approach. So often what we find with new tutors is that, first of all, they have absolutely no idea what IFMSA or SCORY is, and they don't really understand why they should get involved in that. I mean, after all, they're generally very busy people, so why should they accept a student from a foreign country as part of the IFMSA? Also, they sometimes don't necessarily approve the idea of an exchange. We've had a lot of comments about people saying that, oh, 4 weeks is definitely not enough for a project, or it's not really an interesting thing to their team. Also, poor research work quality, that kind of really depends. But if, for instance, a tutor is just beginning to with his lab, or if it's a tutor who doesn't really know how IFMSA works, then it could have a huge influence on how the student will experience the research exchange in the lab. Time constraints to teach and involve exchange students. So most of the tutors will already have their own labs, have their own students, have their own share of workload, and sometimes adding a student as part of the SCORE can be something that is an extra work for them. Language barrier is also something that happens in a lot of countries. And finally, fear of plagiarism. So in the scientific community, there are some tutors that are more protective of their work and do not want to share a lot of their preliminary data because it is a matter of copyright, a matter of intellectual property. So that's also some problem that you might face when approaching a tutor. If it's a tutor that has already agreed or in the past, for instance, to work with IFMSA and SCORE, maybe if they had a previous bad experience with a incoming who was perhaps impolite or didn't have a proper conduct in the lab, that could have a bad influence. Sometimes the fact that it's on summer holidays and tutors are just not available when the students are coming in, that is another obstacle. Lack of experience in research, sometimes from the student's part, which would require more work from the tutor in order to coach the students. And finally, lack of explanation from the Lori about their task, which can also lead to a lot of miscommunication. So a few general tips for you guys as Nores and Loris when it comes to approaching tutors. So first of all, it's really, really important to be prepared. Be prepared to answer questions that tutors will have for you. So for instance, the basics will be to know what is IFMSA, what is SCORE, and how can the tutor benefit from getting involved with us? What can the tutor expect? So we do have a presentation called Basics of SCORE Exchanges that you can see in this link below that we will also share with you. It does have a lot of information, and if not, we highly suggest you go on the website or look at the manuals. There's a lot of information you can find in order to get yourself or the tutor informed about what we do. So also, speaking of that, there's a IFMSA tutor manual. If you haven't checked that out yet, that's definitely something to check it out. It could be interesting for your tutor as well. Create a template as an introduction for yourself, SCORE and IFMSA. So it's always good to already have kind of like an idea to what to say or an idea to what to write, for instance, in an email when you're going to introduce yourself or introduce SCORE to a tutor for the first time. It's really makes your job easier, and it also gives a sort of consistency from one approach to another. So setting goals. Sorry, I'm just gonna check something. Okay. So setting goals. Another important thing to keep in mind is what would you like to achieve when you approach a tutor? So for instance, do you want to get more research project? Do you want to have a certain recognition for SCORE within your local committee? For instance, make SCORE eventually an accredited course? And why also are SCORE exchanges relevant? So they are relevant because they allow hands-on experience and research for medical students. They allow they allow students to develop an interest in research and academia, which, depending on where you come from, is not always something that you have exposure to during your medical training. And also just the fact that it's an international program, it has been running for a lot of years, and there's like this reputation of exchanging ideas, exchanging cultural but also intellectual ideas, which is very interesting. So I'm gonna leave the next part to Bharat, who will take over. Or
Okay,
perhaps,
so just
yeah.
a sec. Um, so, good arguments for Scori exchanges. How we can convince the tutor that why its Scori is beneficial. Okay, first of all, he gets free labor. He or she gets free labor. International medical students coming and working on his project, which gives him, which he doesn't need to pay, and they are very motivated and often experienced. So he get free lab worker who will work for them in just for getting some experience in the research. Second, allow intellectual and cultural exchange within the lab. It creates an environment where tutor also feels that he's sharing knowledge as well, some cultural thing, as well as the student, along with the lab workers, was the co-lab workers that they are working in. It creates a very healthy environment for the tutor and for the student in learning together and gaining new knowledge or new thought processes, which could cultivate new ideas for more researchers. Third, official certificate from Scori. They get a tutor certificate, which we know that it is given, and we have shared the link at the slides that coming slides. So they get an official certificate, which is signed by the Nori and the president of the NMO, stating that the tutor has worked with this student for so and so period and give his valuable time for teaching about the project, about the topic. International exposure of the lab work through the students and the project form. It gives the tutor and the lab where the student has gone an international platform to showcase his or her project, and also make sure that his work is getting recognized, because the student, when writes a testimonial or when he gets some encouraging thoughts and writes in MSI, like this thing, it get international. People are reading about him or his research, and they get motivated to collab with the tutor. Teaching and language experience of lab members and supervisor. Of course, it will add to the resume that they have been teaching students from international students coming from other countries. So they will always have in their CV and resume, which always good for the future references. And the last is always fun. Exchanges means fun, so it's always fun to have Scori exchanges. Now, how to approach them? The question is, when we want to meet a tutor, how do we approach them? Basically, before approaching them, we should have a background check on the tutor that we need to go through. Basically, all the national officers have to make sure that the LURI knows that the local office knows which tutor they're approaching. They have the stakeholder mapping, we say it, like we know what the tutor is all about, what kind of projects that he has, what kind of person he is, whether he's very stern or whether he's very good before, because at that point we can set up the 3 points that is necessary according to Gödel circle, which is an idea by Simon's name. So it has 3 components, the golden circle. Okay, the most sorry yeah, the most important one is why. Why is what is the purpose of research exchanges? If we put the idea, the wholesome idea about why it is so important in to the tutor, he will definitely get interested, because the whole point of why, who, and what is to make sure that the tutor get interested on the idea about research exchange, and he can get convinced to accept students. Now we start with the why. Why is basically why we do research exchange. Why? If we had a background check with the tutor, supposedly I give you one example. The tutor has done he's doing research from 10-15 years, but you came to know that he is also an avid traveler. He loves to travel. So if you have a background check, you can always explain that start with that exchange provide international exposure to the student, along with cultural and knowledge exchange. So once you put this thing into their mind, it's in their brain about why it's happening, then they will hear how do you do it and what way you can do it. Okay, so why is the most important part in the golden circle. Second, how. We all know how the research exchange happens. We know how the outgoing selection happens, how the students goes, the accommodation, everything. So how is basically answering the procedure to which the research exchange would be happening. What? What is the question, like what makes us different from other organization? Why IFMSA stands out? Basically, we say that IFMSA measure stresses on academic quality, and we do that. Plus, it's an international organization which spreads in 5 continents, and students from all these 5 continents go on exchange, which makes it really outstanding. So when you get attention with why, then comes how and what. In this way, you can get attention of a tutor. So golden circle you basically use for when we're approaching a new tutor to develop an interest in the tutor, so that we can give him the outlooks about research exchanges and get him convinced to make a deal with to give us project for research exchanges. So always know your tutor before going with why, who, and what. Have a background check. Next is pain gain and unique claim method. Basically, over here, you if a tutor doesn't get convinced or have some doubts, always get to know what kind of doubts or problem that you have. It will first of all you can solve it. Second of all, if in future the same doubt or the same trouble comes to you, you can always share it with the other loris or with the other noris, so that it will help them to address the same pain that is going through different places. Okay, apart from providing addressing the pain, we have to give them the total gain that the tutor would be getting it. I have already mentioned it before in the benefits, for the SCORI, if we get it free labor and everything. So you have to give them all the gains, and unique claim is the similar to the what thing, that is IFMSA. Why IFMSA is one of the best in terms of providing exchanges, because we are the oldest, we focus on academic quality and everything. From here, Bhasma would be going on. Bhasma?
Actually, Chris is gonna go over the strategy very fast, because I think a couple of slides. Yeah. Go ahead, Chris. Yeah.
So after you know how to approach the tutors with the golden circle and how to prove the gain and use the unique claim, you should start creating a strategy on how to approach them. It's always useful to know what has been done so far. It's important to look at the evaluation forms. In case you haven't even watched it once, you can find it in the NORI or in the LORI panel under evaluation form. And there you can find all the incomings you had in the different seasons. It's really useful for old tutors to give them some feedback, what kind of things the incomings really liked, where they should improve, but please try to be careful with criticism, because some tutors don't like it. But it's really useful. You could even use it for new tutors to show them what other tutors in the same faculty already achieved, so that the students actually do something in their projects. They're not there for vacation, but they learn something and they're really integrated in the team, and they like the different kind of techniques and the different topics. So it's really useful to use former incomings testimonies. And like I already mentioned, the EF data is good for wrapping up the last exchange seasons, maybe even give the mostly liked tutors some presents or some gifts because they put so much effort in the incomings. For new tutors, it's also sometimes useful to show them our endorsement letters. In case you don't know, we're endorsed by several organizations, for example, the World Federation for Medical Education, the World Organization of Family Doctors, or even FIGO and many more. You can find these endorsement letters in the marketing and promotional material folder in our NORI folder. And always think of why might this specific tutor like to take a student? So you have to personalize your message. Is it a tutor who really loves to do teaching? So you could emphasize on that. Or maybe it's a tutor who is kind of for competitions. So if it's already some tutors in your faculty which are really well known and well liked, you can always compare it. Like, you know, this kind of tutor, he does 2 projects and he's usually taking 10 students every year. Maybe you should consider to take students as well. Some really like it this way. Yes, it's important to personalize your message and always be nice to, if they did a good job, not only give them the tutor certificates, but maybe also give them a small gift after the end of the season, or for Christmas, for example. Like a small card is fine as well, but as a gratitude, so they know it's really recognized what they do. I think for the next part, Basma is going to take over for a wrap up and the questions we got from you from the input forms we sent you a few days ago.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Chris. So we are at the last part. Feel free to ask us, and I'll go over the questions we got on the form we sent out, and then I will go over to the chat we have to see if you have any additional ones in the live. So screen share. So first, like a lot of the questions we received were already answered in the slides. We tried to incorporate a lot of them. Were about how to build a strategy to approach tutors, how to correctly fill a form, like the most common mistakes. We're going to share with you the slides afterwards with all of the links in them, as well as minutes. So don't worry if you're not taking notes. So the first question is, what tools do we have to offer to help the professors fill the project form? There is a tutor manual that was created. I'm trying to this segment. Okay. So it's a manual that is very pretty, actually, and it's tailored for our tutors. Here you go. So it has a letter that explains what IFMCA does, or what is SCORI, as well as like a little introduction to us and our objectives and what SCORI projects we have. Then the requirements, so what he should be doing as a tutor. And then we have like a little bit of an explanation on what is like how to fill it and the different parts of it. And this document, you can just print it and give it to the tutor, and it will help them kind of have a clear idea on how to effectively fill the form. We can also we are trying to create, or it's gonna be shared very soon, like the perfect project form, which is basically a project form that's already filled in, showing what are correct correctly filled project form is, and it's can be a tool that you can share with the tutors when you give them the form, or for the lories and the members who are going to be in charge of explaining what the form is to the tutors. So that's another way of doing it, on top of giving them just a manual, is to actually have a meeting with them and explain in details how everything should be done, with maybe giving them notes left in the project form you're going to leave them with. Another question we received is, will we create a lookbook that is related to research methodology? It's a very good question, actually. As you know, Scopy does have some handbooks that are specific to departments, and it's a very good way of following up with what the student is doing and of setting up goals that we think every student should be achieving in a like a research internship or a research project. It's a great idea for a small working group. It was taken into consideration, and we will hopefully have very soon a small working group on this subject. If you want, whoever asked this question, because we don't have the names, you can be the one sending it in when we ask you guys for small working group ideas. Another question we got is, can the SCORE ED and the RA sign the tutor certificate? Yes, we understand how it can make it a bit easier for you guys to recruit tutors maybe in some cases, but logistically it's very hard to manage. We have a huge number of projects, and it's like in the thousands, and we have a huge number of lories and students to manage. So it's going to be very difficult if we have to sign for every tutor a certificate. But maybe for certain case when it is required, you can contact us. That's one. The second thing we can maybe suggest is, if your NMO does need some support from the IT, you can contact your RA, who will contact the SCORE ED, and she can sign like a support letter to your NMO stating that SCORE is active in your NMO, and that you are part of IFMSA International and of the SCORE International program. And it's a letter that you can give to the tutors in addition to whatever kind of other document you have for them. So it gives more validity to your claims. So that was it for the questions we got on, how do I stop this? We got on the survey. Let me just, okay. I will check very fast the live to see if you have any other questions. I have a question. I invite all of the rest of the SB to join in if it's possible and turn on their mics so we can answer the questions. I have a question. Yeah. Feel free to turn on the camera as well. So the question from Malika is, if the tutor wrote the article's web link, is it not valid? Should be written the exact name and number of the journal? What should we do if it's an online article only? Go ahead, maybe Chris can answer, or Rio.
I could try. If it's just really cool if you could state at least the name of the articles and all the author of the articles. So it has the title, the author, and that should be fine. But it would be perfect if you have like the whole thing, not only the web link. So in Google Scholar or something, you can find related articles as well. It would be really cool. I hope that answers your question.
Malika, feel free to add if you did not fully understand, or if you would like more details.
Malika, one suggestion I would like to give is, when you open the article online, there is an option called citation. Okay, so the whole article link comes over there, and then with the name of then the main name of the article, with the research, where the page number is published and everything, and you can directly put it instead of the link that is provided by the tutor. So you can always get the citation PDF, or you can have uh, a citation manager where you can use this thing and you can put it instead of the link that is given by the tutor. Hope I answer your question.
Okay, we got a answer. I think we understood it correctly, which was how to get an NMO active. We're not gonna go into details, but it's basically the same process for us in the projects wise. It's the same steps as send in any normal project. You just fill in the project form, and you send in your project form with the project that you are you want us to activate you with, and in the same time you're already working with your RA and the score ED in order to get like the rest of the steps finished. So it's not something you should worry about. We would be always there to help, and yeah, good luck. I think those are the only questions we got. Okay, Chris, someone is asking you to explain again for the articles.
Okay, no problem. So basically, if it's only a website or if it's a web link, don't just send us the link, like who published the article, what is the title of the article, so the authors, and also when it was published, find it on other versions as well, and not only for the link. Give maybe related articles to it, and like you can use the citation. Really good to have a general overview. So don't put just the link. Actually, don't use any books. It has to be an article, like a real scientific article, not a student book.
I think that Chris, you were not very audible, so I will just go over the main points that he brought up.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So basically what he was saying is that it should be an article with an author and like a clear title, that it should not be like a page out of a book, and that it should not be just like not a proper science. I think we kind of all know what is a proper article. So it's not like just something in a book or a magazine. It should be fully scientifically proven article. I don't know how to say it in English. Peter, also our lovely member who could not join us, is telling you guys that the tutors can maybe also share the links for a Google Drive in which you have PDF of all the required articles. If they are not published somewhere online that's easily accessible, you can just put the links and send us the drive. We have another question from Romania, which is, are there any specific ways to motivate and approach tutors for guiding global action projects, which is a gap? Unfortunately, we did not have time this webinar to approach gap in details. We do have a lot of material about gaps. I can go over it very fast, and then maybe someone else from the supervising board can also chime in. We have some flyers and some documents. I think the best ways can be both marketing and the scientific value of it. I'm not sure if everybody actually understand what a gap project is. There is a very detailed explanation of it and a manual in the NORI folder for all those who want to read up a little bit more about it. It's not very active in a lot of it's not there. We don't have a lot of them in SCORI. Hopefully it will not be the case after this term. But basically, you can focus on the fact that it still has the epidemiology part of it, the fact that it's focusing on something that is related to your country and the impact it will have on the students who are arriving, as well as anybody else who's involved in the project. It gives you also a very unique opportunity to kind of tackle head-on an issue that is native and specific to your country through a research project. It's a very difficult question. I think we might study the possibility of having a webinar just on gaps. I think this is as specific as I can be without spending 30 minutes explaining everything, but maybe if Bharat or Chris have any other way, like ways of motivating the tutors. For me, it's basically just explaining very clearly what the project is, making sure that to give them the flyers we have ready and the poster and all the documents we already have prepared, and making sure maybe to already have an idea in your head on what the epidemiology issue you want to tackle is. So maybe it's not the professor offering the project, it's maybe you saying, for example, for me in Morocco, TB is an issue we have. Would you like to collaborate with us in a gap project about tuberculosis or something similar? Chris or Shia or Bharat, if anybody wants to chime in.
I think you explained it really well. I don't have anything else to add. Sometimes it's really a matter of persistence too. If you just sound convincing enough, they'll just tag along. So honestly, it's kind of hard to say. Sometimes it's a case-by-case situation.
Bharat, would you like to add anything?
Nothing. I think you really answered it well, so I have nothing to add on gap, except you just approach your community medicine or preventive and social medicine researcher or a doctor, because they are the one who are researching on endemic projects. Basically, they know what is the endemic in their locality. So if you approach them, I think it would be helpful to getting a gap project.
Yeah, thank you, Bharat and Shia. I think in the amount of time we still have left, that's the best we can provide you with. We encourage you, however, to send us an email if you would like to have maybe more documents and information, or if you would like us to answer specific questions that you have about GAP. We are always available to answer whatever questions you have. You can just send them to us on the SB Gmail account. Of course, we will make sure to answer you as soon as possible. Yeah, I think that's it. Does anybody have any additional questions for us? Yeah, if that's it, I think we will be saying goodbye to you guys. We hope that you will get to watch this video again to fully understand the steps that we know a lot of you don't understand sometimes why we send back a project, or we might seem like we're nitpicking and being very very strict, but it's because we want the best for you and for the students who are gonna come and go through that project. So we hope that by going through step by step, you understood a little bit better what we expect for each part, and that through the second part, you understood a little bit how and why and when to approach tutors. That's it from me. I will leave my brothers and sisters if they want to have anything to add. Thank you, everyone.
Well, thank you for attending. This is our first webinar, so please excuse us for all the technical problems that we've experienced. It will be better next time. And if, like Basma said, if you have any questions or anything you'd like to share with us, just send us an email and we'll try to discuss it and reply to you with something that will hopefully help you. So just remember, we're really here to help you guys. So please don't hesitate if you want to ask us anything or you have any trouble. We will try our best.
Thank you guys for attending. We were delayed for almost half an hour, and hopefully you were not waiting for us for very too long to start the webinar. From the next time, hopefully we won't have the same glitches, and we could deliver the webinars, the coming webinars, with greater efficiency. Thank you.
Bye, guys. Thank you for staying with us the whole time. I did, but we were totally stressed and prepared everything in advance.
There is one last person who would like to say hi, which is Peter, who our blondie from Russia, who was trying very hard to join, but unfortunately could not. He's here, he's texting us, but he could not join the actual webinar. So we sent him a lot of love as well, because he did help with everything in the preparation and everything. So that's it. Thank you, guys. We will be leaving you right now. Bye-bye.